The Game Changers, it is one of, if not the latest, vegan/plant-based documentary. In fact, I don't think they say the word vegan at all in the movie. Could be wrong about that, but they definitely focus more on plant-based. A UFC fighter's world is turned upside down when he discovers an elite group of world-renowned athletes and scientists who prove that everything he had been taught about protein was a lie. It's got a lot of big names attached to it. The UFC fighter, or former UFC fighter, James Wilkes, he narrates the whole movie. Executive producers, James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the movie, a bunch of athletes, a bunch of doctors, some you've probably heard of before if you are familiar with plant-based dieting, Dean Ornish. So the movie is focused on athletes who are vegan, who eat a plant-based diet. It's mostly anecdotal, like a lot of these movies are. It's basically like, hey, look at this super fit, super strong athlete. Did you know that they eat a plant-based diet? It's not terribly convincing or very interesting to me because it's not evidence of anything other than that people can be healthy and strong on a plant-based diet, which isn't very surprising because people can be healthy and strong on a variety of diets. As long as you eat enough calories, get enough protein, eat like mostly whole foods, you'll probably be all right. And the thing is, someone promoting like a paleo diet can do the same thing. They can make the same sort of movie pointing to, strong people who eat a paleo diet. But again, it doesn't mean that a paleo diet is the best diet or that everyone will get, similar results by going paleo. Remember, a lot of what goes on with athletes is genetic. Does anyone think that like Serena Williams' height and her ability to pack on a lot of muscle have nothing to do with her amazing career? I have a feeling she could eat pretty much any diet and she would still be one of the world's best tennis players ever in the history of tennis. What is interesting to me, I'm sure you won't be surprised if you're familiar with my channel, but it's the effect that diets can have on the world. So obviously the planet, our environment, and animals. But this isn't the focus of the movie, and that's okay. They do talk about the environment for like 2 or 3 minutes towards the end. They have one little tiny part from a person that they interview that kind of mentions morality and ethics. But again, the focus is on nutrition and athletic performance. Again, that's okay. And it could be interesting to me if the focus were on the science behind plant-based eating. And there is a lot of science that's referenced in this movie. Unfortunately, the literature is often misrepresented, or what they cite isn't representative of the whole of the literature. So the first thing, this is just weird. I don't understand why it's in here. It has no bearing on anything. This happens within the first 5 minutes. It's the whole Roman gladiator thing. You might have heard about this. They were called barley men. This was like a derisive nickname because supposedly they ate a lot of barley. And it turns out this seems like it was true according to this analysis that they did on gladiator bones. It looks like they indeed ate a lot of barley, a lot of legumes and grains. But what the documentary fails to mention is that this diet likely wasn't intended to keep gladiators like super strong, yes, but also super lean, kind of the image that we have in our heads and what the media portrays to us whenever they show us what a gladiator is supposed to look like. Quite the opposite. Gladiators needed subcutaneous fat. A fat cushion protects you from cut wounds and shields nerves and blood vessels in a fight. Not only would a lean gladiator have been dead meat, he would have made for a bad show. Surface wounds look more spectacular. If I get wounded but just in the fatty layer, I can fight on. It doesn't hurt much, and it looks great for spectators. I wonder why they didn't mention that in the movie. Again, it's such a stupid thing to even bring up in the first place. It doesn't mean anything other than, yeah, you can get fat if you eat a crap ton of carbs. You can get fat if you eat a crap ton of anything. They talk about protein, of course, which is good, and they give this little infographic kind of thing. And the narrator, James Wilkes, says 1 cup of cooked lentils or a peanut butter sandwich has about as much protein as 3 ounces of steak or 3 large eggs. This is kind of true. 3 ounces of sirloin has about 25 grams of protein, 3 large eggs has about 19, 1 cup of cooked lentils has about 18, and a peanut butter sandwich, and I did 2 medium slices of whole wheat bread and 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, has 16 grams, which is actually like quite a bit lower than the beef. But overall protein doesn't necessarily reflect protein quality. As you can see here, both the beef and the eggs provide a massive amount of amino acids in just 130 to 230 calories. The cup of lentils does a pretty awesome job as well at only 230 calories. But the peanut butter sandwich is obviously lacking, even though it has by far the most calories. They address this by saying, quote, every single plant contains all the essential amino acids in varying proportions. Then they say, as long as the proper amount of amino acids are consumed, the source is irrelevant. But that's not quite right. It's not how much protein is consumed, but how much protein is digested. And plant protein generally is not as well digested as animal protein. It's why it's generally recommended for vegans to get slightly more protein than omnivores. This isn't hard to do for regular people like me. Just eat a few servings of beans a day and you're good. But it does get a little bit difficult for athletes, particularly athletes whose sport, revolves around maximizing strength. Going back to the protein comparison, again, 3 ounces of sirloin, 25 grams, 1 cup of cooked lentils, 18 grams, so pretty close. But the weight is quite different. 1 cup of cooked lentils weighs 7 ounces. That's more than double the weight of the steak. Not surprising. Plant foods have more water generally, more fiber. They are bulkier foods, which is a good thing, right? It's a healthy thing. We want fiber in our diet. But again, if you are trying to maximize strength and you're trying to get a crap ton of protein and calories, it's going to make things a little bit more difficult. Unless you're eating a lot of soy protein, a lot of protein shakes, right? You're going to have to eat a lot more food to get the same amount of protein. Again, this is absolutely doable. I just don't think that the movie adequately portrays the reality regarding plant protein, that it's slightly to dramatically inferior depending on the specific food, and that vegans have to consume slightly to dramatically more of it depending on our activity level and our goals. Just to be clear, I don't really care about any of this. Like, you don't have to be a strength man, a strong man, or a power lifter or anything like that, right? Like, I care about average people who are not doing things like that. The vast majority of people do not have jobs like that or even hobbies like that. So I'm not super concerned about whether you can get the same kind of gains eating vegan, doing something like that. To be honest, I think it's really wasteful because you're talking about people eating like 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 calories a day in order to do this. But hey, I would much rather them do it on a vegan diet than on an animal product diet. I mean, you look at the days of eating for some of these people, and it's like a pound of meat at every meal. One more thing, one of the studies that they cite to support the claim that the source of protein is irrelevant says this: as a group, vegetarians have lower mean muscle creatine concentrations than do omnivores, and this may affect supramaximal exercise performance. Gaining muscle isn't just about protein. There are other factors like creatine, having low creatine, that can affect performance. And this becomes more important the more performance matters to you, right? If you're just working out at home and lifting weights, it's not that important. But if you are actually competing, it's going to matter. This is easily mitigated. There are athletes, I think a lot of people, again, who are doing anything strength-related supplement for it. Patrik Baboumian, who is in this movie, he supplements for it. But obviously, it's not as simple as saying, eat enough protein and you're fine, and that plant protein is no different from animal-based protein. Now we get to one of, if not the worst part of the film. There's another similar part that's just as bad, I guess. They do this little study with 3 football players, 2 omnivores and 1 4-year vegan. On the first day, the omnivores get a burrito with either chicken or beef and cheese. Both of the burritos have cheese. And then the vegan guy gets a burrito of black beans and avocado. And then on the second day, they all get the black bean and avocado burrito. Their blood is taken 2 hours after each meal. And unsurprisingly, after the animal-based meal, the meals with chicken and beef, their blood is cloudier. Measuring something that happens after you eat doesn't necessarily tell us anything on its own. especially when you're looking at 3 people, it doesn't necessarily tell us anything important, like, CVD risk. You look at blood sugar rises after we eat. Sometimes it rises more after eating a plant-based meal, if that meal has certain foods in it. Does that mean that going plant-based increases your risk for type 2 diabetes? Obviously not. They cite a few studies that apparently back up this little experiment, this idea that animal protein impedes blood flow, one of which is this one, which I find kind of odd. It's a pilot study on 11 people. They're given first a hamburger on its own and then a hamburger with avocado. The addition of avocado to a high-fat meal was able to attenuate the postprandial vasoconstrictive effect of a high-fat diet. So make sure to eat avocado with your hamburger. I mean, that's what I'm getting from that. The study obviously doesn't support giving up meat for cardiovascular health. If anything, it just helps show how hard it is to study nutrition, especially when you are trying to point to a certain food or food group as healthy or unhealthy. It may be unhealthy in a certain context, a certain food pattern. So say you're having the hamburger and also refined grains, but it could be healthy in another context. You're having the hamburger with avocado and fruits and vegetables. It honestly would have been a lot more interesting in the 3 people study, if they had kept the meat for the second meal but replaced the cheese with avocado. I wonder if it would have the similar, the effect that we saw with the avocado study. I wonder if the results would have been less cloudy. That's way more interesting to me, but whatever. It's not a study, so it doesn't matter. Oh, and fish has been associated with better endothelial function. This is the problem when you try to present a certain food group, really, meat, as all bad. Various meats are fairly different from one another. And when you do that, when you try to lump them all together, you're gonna butt up against the science. And you can either go where the science leads you, or you can do what the Game Changers does, which is ignore it, I guess. Going back to protein, they show this little graphic where circling plant protein, there's fiber, vitamin C, lycopene, carotenoids, flavonoids, and lignans. And then circling animal protein, there's TMAO, heterocyclic amines, heme iron, new 5GC, AGEs, and endotoxins. The obvious implication being that plant protein is full of good, healthy things, and animal protein is full of bad, unhealthy things. Obviously, that's incorrect. Both of these groups have bad and good things. I think overall, you can say that plants have more good things and less bad things than meat, but there are bad things in plants too. Plants like beans have anti-nutrients that are kind of both good and bad, but they are the reason, partially why digestibility is lower for plants for foods like beans and grains. And meat has some good things. It has some nutrients that are important like zinc and B vitamins. Plus, some of the bad meat components that are listed here aren't inherent to meat, or at least to certain meats. So heterocyclic amines are a byproduct of high temperature cooking. Obviously you can prepare meat without charring it. Same goes for AGEs. Oh, and nuts like almonds are fairly high in AGEs. So, should we stop consuming almonds now? The link between TMAO and heart disease is still pretty new. In any event, it seems to only be a problem for red meat. Same for new 5GC. And the link between heme iron and cancer has been questioned in recent reviews. Again, it's the food pattern that's the most important thing. They talk about plants reducing inflammation, and again, they bring up that hamburger study. And again, they only mention the hamburger part of the trial, that eating a hamburger on its own increased inflammation. They don't mention that the addition of avocado seemed to attenuate an increase in inflammatory markers. It's hard to trust people who continually leave out information like this. It makes it seem like they have a narrative and they're gonna promote that narrative at all costs. I get the intent. I want people to eat less animals, but we need to be honest and not, lie by omission. Even iceberg lettuce has more antioxidants than salmon or eggs. That is an actual quote from the movie. How does that support giving up meat entirely? I'm pretty sure that you can get a lot of antioxidants while also eating meat. You can eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, get a lot of fiber and all that good stuff, polyphenols, whatever, and also eat animal products. To turn this around, I could say that salmon and eggs have a lot of protein, a lot more protein than iceberg lettuce, so we should eat an animal-based diet. Salmon and eggs have a lot more of a lot of things than iceberg lettuce. Salmon and eggs have more protein and other stuff than a lot of other foods. Omega-3s, for instance, a lot of other, plant foods. It doesn't mean that those plant foods are unhealthy. It just means that we need to eat a balanced diet. And the most important component of eating a balanced vegan diet is replacing the things that we lose by giving up meat with alternatives, right? So we take supplements for B12, for calcium, for vitamin D. We eat beans and mock meat for protein. If meat were just a nothing food, if meat just provided nothing for us, then we wouldn't have to do any of that. Obviously, we don't have to eat animal products to be healthy, but that doesn't mean that eating animal products makes you unhealthy. It's the food and lifestyle pattern that matters. They reference Dr. Dean Ornish's lifestyle heart trial as evidence that a plant-based diet is the only diet to have ever reversed heart disease. What they don't mention is the size of the trial or the fact that the participants were also exercising, receiving stress management and other support, and not smoking. Vegetarians who add 1 or more servings per week of white meat like chicken or fish more than triple their risk of colon cancer. That's a quote from the movie. The study they're referencing is 20 years old. There's been a lot of research on colon cancer since then, research that overall does not support this finding. Also, as mentioned in the study that they cite, the increased risk for those who consumed 1 or more servings of meat per week was only seen in the people who did not consume legumes or consumed a small amount of legumes. So again, we're seeing that what you eat along with animal products makes a huge difference. And, maybe a vegan diet is still better. Maybe eating a small amount of animal products, which with a bunch of vegetables, is not as good as that vegan diet. We don't know. We don't have the evidence on that yet. If you are already meeting, the quota for fruits and vegetables, and you're eating legumes and you're eating whole grains, you are already doing so much, especially if you're also exercising, if you're managing your stress, if you're getting enough sleep, if you're not smoking, if you're not drinking a lot. You are doing the major things that drastically reduce your risk for a lot of the top killers in this country. It's ridiculous to think that cutting out that serving of meat, the couple of eggs, the glass of milk, is going to further drastically reduce your risk for heart disease, diabetes, etc. The only reason that makes sense for giving up those foods is environmental, but really mainly ethical, right? I mean, eating meat is unethical, period. And if you're buying eggs and milk from a store, it's unethical, period. Another awesome study, this is the other worst part of the movie. 3 guys, another 3 athletes are fed meat burritos the first night and then mock meat burritos the second night. There's like a beef one, a chicken one, and I forgot the other one. And the chicken one is obviously the Beyond Meat griller strips or grilled strips, whatever they call them, that they're not selling anymore. That sucks. I actually like those. Their dicks, their erections were monitored both nights while they slept. And surprise, surprise, they had longer, stronger, more frequent erections after the mock meat, the vegan burrito. To be fair, the doctor who's doing this, Spitz, I believe is his name, he does say that it isn't a scientifically validated study, but that it's going to, quote, wake a lot of people up. So clearly this is included as more like evidence for a plant-based, for a vegan diet, which is just irresponsible. In actuality, there isn't any scientific literature looking specifically at veganism and erectile dysfunction. Even this article from PCRM does not link to any study on veganism because it does not exist. The fact that the only thing that comes up when you search vegan erectile dysfunction on PubMed is a case report about a guy who experienced loss of libido and erectile dysfunction after eating a vegan-style diet with a shit ton of soy. It's honestly amazing how much soy he ate. But the fact that this is what comes up when you search vegan erectile dysfunction is pretty funny. Not that the guy had that. I mean, that really sucks. But that they're like, go vegan and you'll improve erectile function. And then you search for scientific literature and it's like, nope. Obviously, it's not proof. The guy was eating a ridiculous diet. Like, I think it worked out to, in terms of the isoflavones, it worked out to 1,400 grams of soy. Just absolutely a ridiculous amount of soy. I would love to have seen like exactly what he was eating, because they just say the amount of isoflavones in it, and then they say like just generally the kinds of foods he was eating. But I would love to see like what a meal looked like for this guy and why he started eating that way, because it's incredible. As someone who loves soy very much, I'm kind of impressed. Anyway, there are studies looking at diet and erectile dysfunction, and a correlation between high cholesterol and erectile dysfunction has been found. And because vegans tend to have lower cholesterol, it would make sense that you would see, a lower risk for erectile dysfunction in vegans compared to like your average omnivore. But that doesn't mean that a diet similar to a vegan diet with lots of fruits and vegetables and meat wouldn't have the same results. It sucks because I think this could have been the strongest part of the film, and it is kind of the theme overall, I guess, just in terms of the, it's mostly men that they're showing. There are some female athletes, but it's predominantly men, really strong, manly men, quote unquote. And clearly this is an issue for some men. They don't want to, number one, even talk about climate change because it's girly, and they don't want to eat less meat because it's girly, and they're afraid that it's going to affect their masculinity. It's really important that they have people like Arnold and Patrik Baboumian, is that how you say it? In the movie, people who are obviously so strong and obviously so outspoken about not eating meat. And they talk about studies that find no difference in testosterone levels between vegans and vegetarians, and that soy doesn't decrease testosterone, which is true. That's all really great. But it's the exaggerating. It's getting men's hopes up with stupid little studies. That's what bothers me. There are many men whose erectile dysfunction has nothing to do with diet, and a change in diet is not going to help them. And you know what? They're no less manly for it. So last thing, they talk about the meat industry funding studies to, try and prove that meat is healthy and that we don't need to cut back actually, which is a thing. This is true. But that avocado hamburger study? It's funded by the Haas Avocado Board. You can't make this stuff up, folks. They also included a small bit by Dr. David Katz. He is someone who has received a lot of industry funding. Chobani Yogurt, Hershey's, Kind Bars, some others as well. And he seems to have changed his positions on nutrition based on where he is receiving money from. So yeah, maybe not the best source to include in a segment on industry funding. Although I guess he's an expert, right? There's several more things, but I think this is long enough. Again, I like the idea of this movie, particularly the whole kind of going against the real men eat meat kind of bullshit. I don't even really mind a movie that's just all anecdotes. That's just all, look at this athlete, look at this athlete, look at this one. They're plant-based. But I wish that were the movie, right? I wish it were just, hey, look at this really strong fit person. They eat a plant-based diet. Cool. Kind of a like, see, you don't have to eat animal products to get strong and fit. Instead of what the movie is, which is, it's this very strong implication that if you give up animal products, it will help you be stronger and fitter. Those are very different messages. And, even talking about nutrition, you can talk about nutrition without exaggerating. The evidence for a plant-based diet, in terms of mostly plants, not a vegan diet, is pretty strong, right? I mean, most health organizations do recommend reducing meat consumption. The vast majority of people should reduce their consumption of meat and refined grains as well, processed foods. And doing so would drastically change the overall health of people in this country. The strongest part of the movie for me is towards the end, where they interview this guy, I think it's in Zimbabwe, who works to protect endangered species, elephants and rhinos. And he talks about making the connection between protecting these animals, but then going on to eat other animals, and how that's bullshit. And it's great. This is really the only time they touch on ethics at all. And to me, I was crying. This is what having children does to you. You just cry at the drop of a hat. God damn. Anyway, that's the part I care about most, not more than the environment, more than any sort of health benefits. It's animals. So, of course, that's going to be the part that connects with me the most. And obviously, you don't want women crying about animals in a movie that's really more geared towards, you can be strong on plants, I get it. Also, at the very end, they talk about transitioning. It's very brief, but it's really nice, not telling people to just give up meat. That's what Arnold says. You don't walk up to someone and just say, give up meat, and he's like, fuck you. Like, don't tell me what to do. Fuck up. And then he says, instead it's like, hey, how about not eating meat once a week? Right? I mean, that's all great stuff. What bothers me the most about this movie and other movies like it, The Magic Pill, What the Health, all these sort of nutrition documentaries, quasi-scientific, documentaries, is that they just add more confusion to nutrition. Being healthy, dramatically reducing your risk for many of the top killers is not complicated. Get enough sleep, manage your stress, exercise, don't eat too much, eat a variety of foods, don't smoke. Movies like this just add to the confusion. Who do you trust? Do you trust the guy who says don't eat any animal products? Or do you trust the guy who says eat all the animal products, eat all the animals you can? Do you trust the low-fat guys or do you trust the low-carb guys? Do you trust the people saying count calories or do you trust the people saying, no, it's all about macronutrients, it's all about protein? When people are confused or just overwhelmed by choices, something that they don't have a lot of information about and they're relying on experts to tell them what to do. And when all these people are saying, no, I'm the expert, listen to me. No, he's wrong, I'm the expert. It can lead to us just shutting down and not doing anything, not making any lifestyle changes. It's not as bad as What the Health, though. I'll give it that. It doesn't promote, low fat or any of that stuff. So that's good. It was mostly boring, I would say. Well, I mean, I kind of oscillated between being bored and being aggravated. So it was kind of a wild ride for me, I guess. And also I took a lot of breaks, right, to write things down. And, I can't say it's something that I would recommend to people. But again, I do see the value in the kind of putting to rest the whole real men eat meat thing. You're really concerned about what people think of you because that's what it says to me. You don't want to be vegan because you don't want people to look at you a certain way. You don't want people to know that you're vegan. What does that say about you as a manly man? Right? I mean, I don't know. That seems a little like you're a little bitch, whether you're male or female. Like it's just kind of the most pathetic thing that you're that concerned about what it looks like if someone sees you eating a bean burrito. And also the kind of, from an ethical perspective, real men care about shit. Real men actually want the world to be a better place and they want to play their part in that. And if they realize that something they're doing is really harmful, they want to stop that. It's not a woman thing. It's not compassion and caring about things is a good thing. I mean, we all know that, but it's not cool, I guess, right? Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Support the channel, patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. And I will have a new video soon-ish. I am still working on the intuitive eating video. It's taking a long time because I've had to read, honestly, a lot of things, the intuitive eating book and some other material as well. So it's taken a lot of time, but hopefully I'll have that up fairly soon. And yeah, I hope you guys had a good Halloween. Mine was awesome. It was so much fun. Oh my God, toddler was just so precious in their costume. And because this was their first time trick-or-treating. So they were a little hesitant at first, going up to strangers' houses, but they did it once or twice. And they were like, yeah, let's go to more houses, more candy. It was great. We just traded out, the candy. They didn't get a whole lot. We were out for maybe an hour and a half, but a 3-year-old, they can only walk so fast, So they didn't end up with a ton of candy, which is good, right? But yeah, we traded out the Snickers and Twix. I think maybe they got a Twix, a Kit Kat, stuff like that. We traded that out with some other chocolate. We got that No Way chocolate. It's garbage. The chocolate is so cheap, but you know, my kid doesn't know any better, so of course it's yummy to them. Yeah, so we traded out stuff with that, and we had some Sour Patch Kids, which they got a lot of as well. Kids like Sour Patch Kids. While we were out, I heard an older kid who went up to a house and was like, yeah, Sour Patch Kids. Like, people really like them. They're great. They're not as sour though. Some of them are, but like, we got some watermelon ones that are not sour at all, but then we got the Halloween, like, zombie ones that have the orange and the purple, and those are actually kind of sour, so kind of all over the place, but yeah, and then we got, what else? Blow Pops, Jolly Ranchers, not for toddler, but for, you know, passing out. Yeah, they still have a lot of candy left, but they've kind of forgotten about it. I don't think they've been eaten any in like a couple days. I have eaten a fair amount. No, not that much, really. I mean, you get sick of it really quick, especially when you don't have the kind of palate change. You can't just eat a lot of Sour Patch Kids. I can't anyway. But if I have Sour Patch Kids and some sort of chocolate thing, well, I can alternate pretty much forever. You know, I can have Sour Patch Kids and even just like some good quality dark chocolate, you know, or, oh, have you guys had those Cocomels? Oh my God, they are so good. I hope they come out with some sort of Halloween thing that's cheaper, because they have like tiny bags for $5 or something. It's not something that you can like pass out unless you're loaded, I guess. But man, they are delicious. And they have some chocolate covered ones too that I haven't tried yet, but oh, they're so good. But yeah, man, if I have some Cocomels and some Sour Patch Kids, I can alternate that all day. But if I'm just eating Sour Patch Kids and other kind of like fruity stuff, blow pop stuff like that, I can't eat that much. And then if you give me something salty, like I've got some sweet spicy Doritos, I've got some Cocomels, I've got some Sour Patch Kids, we're good, man. That's my diet for the day. 1 cup of lentils is almost 17 ounces. No, not 17. Whew, that would suck ass.